Hi, I'm Dr. Anthony F. Soare. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Are you preparing for a defense, dissertation defense? If so, you have come to the right place. Let me share some of the things that you should be expecting when you go for your defense. All right? So, when you are preparing for your defense, first and foremost, I want you to understand that you are going out there to present your findings and be able to educate people about what you found during your research study. This is something where you have to be excited about. You don't have to be nervous because you are the researcher. You have gone out there and you were able to get some information. It is your responsibility now to tell your audience about what you have found and what are some of those things you recommend based on what you found. Okay, so during your defense, your advisor and committee members will be asking you some critical questions, and you might as well get some questions from other people who are watching live if you are doing it by Zoom or face to face. So, here are some very important things to remember when you are going for your defense. And what are those things that you're supposed to include in your defense? First, do not be nervous. Do not be nervous. You are the researcher. You have done an awesome job, and this is why you are at that particular stage in your doctoral journey. So you should be excited. You should be very, very excited because everyone is looking up to you. It is time to make your family proud. It is time to make your professors proud. It's time to make the world, to look at you and say, yes, she or he has done it. All right. So yeah, something you during your defense, you will introduce yourself, talk about your academic background, talk about your professional experiences. You are just going to give a synopsis of your background, and so that people know where you are coming from. And then after that, you are going to talk about the overview of your study. You also talk about your research question. You talk about the rationale of the study, the purpose of the study, the significance of the study. You want to also bring in limitations of your study from chapter 1. You also want to talk about key definitions or key terms during your defense. It is very important because you are going to be giving your audience an overview of what your research is about. Not everybody understands the details of your research. So giving them some key definitions from your research will help a lot. And after you talk about your key terms or the definitions, then that will be about chapter 1. Then you move on to chapter 2, which is the literature review. You are giving maybe 1 or 2 slides of your literature review. You are only giving a synopsis of your literature. You are taking the key points and talking about it during your research. What were those key points that you documented in your literature? When you did your research, you went to different academic journals, Science Direct, maybe JSTOR, PubMed, or Super Search from your library, and you were able to gather pertinent information about what other experts have said or researchers have said about your topic. So you want to use the information as uh, a backing for your research. And that's all about the literature review. So you are not going to take the entire literature review to present it during your defense. You are just going to give a synopsis of your literature review, and you're going to get a very important aspect of your literature review and present it to during your defense. And then after that, you move on to chapter 3. Chapter 3 is where you're going to bring in your it's the methodology. You talk about the methodology, you talk about your research design. And in chapter 3, you are going to talk about the approach you use. If you are doing phenomenology, you're going to talk about the approach that you use. Like in my defense, in my dissertation, I use phenomenology. So because it's a qualitative research, I use phenomenology, and I also talk about the two approaches of phenomenology: the transcendental and the hermeneutics. And because the transcendental is the unbiased description of the participants, and the hermeneutics talks about the interpretation of the lived experiences of the participants. So based on my research, I chose to interpret the lived experiences of the participants. So my study was focused on the hermeneutic approach. You're also going to talk about the sampling during your research. The sampling. You're going to talk about purposive or snowball sampling, whatever sampling methods you use. Then you move on to validity. Under validity, you're going to define what validity is to give your audience an understanding of what makes your research valid. And under validity, you're going to be talking about member checking. Member checking is one of the key aspects. This is where you send your transcript back to the participants for validation. And then from there, you are going to talk about reliability. Reliability. How do you enhance reliability during your research? So you are going to be talking about consistency of the administration of the instrument across all study participants. Consistency is key. So whatever was done with participant 1 was done with participant 2, participant 3, until you get to the last person that you interview. And then also for peer review on validity, you're going to be talking about the second quarter. Your second quarter. So your second quarter help you with the coding, and you and the second quarter were able to go over everything, and the both of you certify that yes, indeed, these codes are good, and you were able to develop teams. So that is under validity. So you have member checking, you have peer review, where the second quarter comes in. Then when you go to reliability, reliability talks about the transcription of audio files or digital files. And then on reliability, to enhance reliability, that's what you do. But you also talk about consistency, the consistent administration of instruments across all study participants. So basically, that's what for chapter 3. And then you also have the data analysis aspect, which you're going to do. You're going to talk about the coding and how you put your what software you use during your coding, whether it was Masquerade, whether it was in vivo or something else, but you're going to talk about your software. So that's very important information for chapter 3 in your defense. And then you move on to chapter 4, which is about the findings of the research. Chapter 4 is your findings. The results section In chapter 4, you're going to talk about, you're going to introduce your, you're going to have the introduction. And during your introduction, you talk about what the study is about. And then also you will bring in your research question. And then after that, you will give a brief overview and then also talk about move into your teams. So your teams that were created or that emerged from your data analysis will be in chapter 4. This is the results session. This session is only about what the participants say during the interview. You are not going to be triangulating anything in this chapter with literature. No, this chapter is only your results of a findings section, and it only talks about what the participants said. This is where you're going to quote your participants a lot. You at least the maximum of 3 or 4 quotes in on a team is okay. You don't have to quote everybody. Then you move on to, at the end of chapter 4, you will have a summary and then move on to chapter 5. Chapter 5 is where you're going to be discussing the findings of the research. So in chapter 5 is the you discuss the findings of the research. In chapter 4 is where you present the findings of the research. So chapter 5, you discuss the finding of the research. So at the beginning of chapter 5, again, you're going to have a brief introduction, and then you bring all the themes from chapter 4, and you're going to discuss them. This is where you're going to triangulate your findings with literature. If there is something in the literature, in your findings, while discussing, and the participant says something that you found in the literature, or that can be that's in the literature, then you're going to let your readers know that yes, this one falls in line with the literature. Okay, so that's chapter 5. You are still going to bring some of the voices of the participants in chapter 5 so as to give chapter 5 a heavyweight during your research. Okay, during your presentation, let's say. Then after you talk about all the themes in chapter 5, after discussing them, you move on to the essence of the study. The essence of the study will describe the weaknesses or the strengths of the participants and everything during your research. You're going to talk about that. And then also you move on to recommendations. Your recommendations, and then recommendations for research. And then after that, you will conclude. And then the last part will be unexpected outcomes. So this is basically how you're going to structure your defense, and you will be prepared for any question. Any question that's going to come from your team, you're going to be well prepared because you have laid out your defense in a manner with all necessary information from chapter 1 to chapter 5. So I'm Dr. Anthony F. Soare. I'm from St. Mary's University of Minnesota, and very good school. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to put your questions in the comment section. And in my next video, I will be coming back to answer your questions. Thank you very much.